Today we're going to be talking about building the ultimate ITSM toolbox, leveraging FootPrints and BCM. Integrating FootPrints and BCM allows you to simplify your support processes. And today we're going to think of everything as a tool in your toolbox. So under the FootPrints Service Core umbrella, of course, we have many tools at our disposal. The product allows you to fulfill your incident and problem management needs, the generalized ticketing, request fulfillment, and so forth. It also offers, of course, change management, configuration management, and then, as you can see, quite a few other aspects of the ITIL framework or service management aspects. When considering BCM or the client manager or the asset manager, as it's been called over time, it, of course, brings some automation and asset inventory capabilities, tools, if you will, discovery and inventory being a tool of remote management, and so forth. And the two of these tools or products, when integrated, are going to allow you to perform a lot of support processes faster and easier, which ultimately will make you a more successful service desk. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those tools and throw them in the toolbox and talk about some of those support processes. If we think about change management and patch management and how those two work together, I think the synergy there is obvious. Often in an organization, we have an organization responsible for patching our servers as well as our client devices. A proper patch management process hopefully has some change management tied to it so that we don't have any unnecessary or unknowns when we restart a server, things of that nature. And by introducing the two products together in such a way that a change manager can have access to the patch information, give them information around the servers that they're supporting and are going to patch, hopefully we can decrease the amount of downtime as a result of unplanned or poorly executed change by leveraging those two tools in our toolbox. Another aspect is, making informed decisions around the financial asset management capabilities or aspects of your assets. One thing the client manager is able to do and keep track of is your contracts. When did you buy a piece of hardware? When did you buy a piece of software? Is there a contract? Is there a support contract that expires? Is it warranted? Have we purchased that product in the last year, 2 years, or 5 years? And by having that information readily available to your IT service management product, typically stored in your CMDB, we can automate processes. We can create tickets that is linked to assets that are about to have a contract expiring in the next 30, 60, 90 days, and really kickstart those processes. When you think about troubleshooting a device, and you look at the history of that device and you see that you've replaced the hard drive not once, not twice, but 3 times, and the residual value of that asset might be $50 at this point because you've owned it for so long, maybe it's time to get that user a new device. Lifecycle management, all of that is something that these two tools working together can help you optimize. And then another example I wanted to bring up is the idea of device management. And device management in the terms of the client manager means quite a few things. It means understanding what's on the device, which helps you make better decisions when you're troubleshooting a problem with a device. It means being able to lock a device down such that we don't expose it to security vulnerabilities, whether that means in a financial institution prohibiting data from being written to a USB drive or being written or burned to a CD. That's one aspect. But there's also aspects to device management that will help us in the troubleshooting of your typical incidents as they come through the help desk. And we'll talk about that in more detail in future slides. So the one thing that's very, very important to a service desk is, the whole reason we're tracking our incidents, hopefully, and doing things on the service desk is to decrease that mean time to resolve. And ultimately what that does is lower support costs, but it also increases your customer satisfaction when a customer's issue is resolved promptly, quickly, and expertly. If we take a couple of tools out of the toolbox, initially we have our problem management and knowledge management processes. And when you think about how these two tools or processes work together, the idea here is that your service desk is documenting inside of your service desk tool the different times that an error occurs. Let's just pretend the user gets an error 1, 2, 3 when they open up Microsoft Visio. Okay. First time that happens, it's a quandary, right? We don't know what caused it. Second time it happens, we might be able to see some patterns by looking at the history of those tickets. Third time, fourth time, fifth time, we can start to understand exactly the root cause of these problems or incidents, if you will, generate a problem, which will then spur, hopefully, some sort of knowledge, which we can then reuse. And now, when we get that call into the help desk, we understand exactly what we need to do because we can search for it and find it in the knowledge base, and follow our 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 steps or whatever it is to resolve that issue. So that's a couple tools. Oops, excuse me. Now, when we introduce and integrate FootPrints with BCM, we now add remote management into the mix. And remote management is essentially the ability from a ticket to understand which asset the user is calling in about, and with a single button click, able to remote control that device. Now, in my mind, what that means is instead of walking an end user who may or may not be computer savvy and hopefully is not as computer savvy as the person they're calling on the service desk, it allows them to push a button, control that device, whether it's a Windows or Mac device, whether they're on or off your network, and perform those, again, 5 steps in that knowledge article, but this time it's the technician doing it as opposed to the technician walking the end user through it, and we find this typically decreases the amount of time you spend on a call in half. So what we've done by introducing an integration with FootPrints and BCM is taken that typical 20-minute call down to 10 minutes. Now, if we add yet another layer called process automation into the mix, again, this is achieved through our integration of the 2 products, FootPrints and BCM, we find that the idea that a technician can receive that call, search for the issue in the knowledge base, and see that there's actually been an automation created that facilitates and executes those 5 commands and exposes it through a push button directly in the service desk ticket or incident. Now, the experience is optimized for both the end user and the technician because the user places the call, the technician answers and says hi, they identify who they are, what the problem is, they search for it, they find it, they push a button, and they tell the end user that within a few moments, their device will go through a series of actions, at which point the issue will be resolved. If it's not, Mr. End User, Mrs. End User, please respond to an email notification indicating that the actions have been performed. Let us know it's not, and we'll perform a follow-up instantly. Otherwise, automatically that ticket will be closed upon successful execution of those 5 or 6 commands. And now with a very smooth process, you've automated a fix that once upon a time took hours. Once you figured out what the cause was, 20 minutes. Once you added remote to it, 10. Now we answer the call and close it very, very quickly. This is an example of how we're able to decrease your mean time to resolve issues and, of course, lower your support costs. Another aspect of benefits of integrating the 2 product suites is you are now able to provide proactive as opposed to reactive support. Most often, when a user calls, you're reacting to the information they give you, and you have to go through that 20, 10, 5-minute life cycle based on where you are and understanding the nature of the issue that they're asking you for. What the BCM agent actually allows you to perform is something we call event-based monitoring. And the event-based monitoring is basically the device itself becomes aware of issues or scenarios before the user may or may not even be aware of it. And through automation and integration, we can optimize that process and proactively resolve and create and close tickets before, again, the end user perhaps is even aware. Let's take a look at a couple use cases. If we think about an event occurring on an end user's desktop, maybe you're in the healthcare industry and the EMR, the records management software that you use is hosted or web-enabled. And maybe, again, taking the healthcare scenario, there's multiple clinics or hospitals, across the state, country, what have you. And all of a sudden, one location loses access to that EMR. What will happen if this integration occurs and an event has been created to look for a 502, 404, some sort of web error when a web URL is attempting to be accessed? The solution will try to access that URL on a regular interval. Could be 5 seconds, could be a minute, could be 5 minutes, you decide. And the moment that URL becomes inaccessible, the device itself, through web protocols, will create an incident within BMC FootPrints. And you will know, as a help desk or service desk technician, which device initiated the error, what the specific error is, and any details that arose from that error. So imagine, if you will, a service desk technician or a manager monitoring a queue suddenly sees 45 tickets or 40 tickets or whatever that number is, 15 tickets suddenly show up. And they all are subject line, error 404 when attempting to access EMR from, and then someone looks at that information and goes, oh my gosh, there's something going on. We can leverage the visual impact analysis. We can leverage the CMDB. We can do our root cause analysis leveraging FootPrints, and we can understand then by looking at those that, look, they're all coming from devices at a particular location in Virginia. The network technicians or network team should then be assigned. Seems like a network issue. The network manager can look in the CMDB and understand that all those devices perhaps flow through a centralized network device. Obviously, the next step would be to troubleshoot that device, reboot it, update it, whatever it is that's necessary to accomplish or resolve the issue. And the integration here is two ways. So the moment that network technician reboots that router, switch, whatever it might be that resolves the issue, literally all 40, 50, whatever amount of tickets that were initially created are suddenly closed. You don't have to go in and modify each one individually. It's just somebody identifying that there's a problem, 45 tickets are related, grouping them together, assigning them to the network team. Network team fixes the issue, and then all those tickets are closed automatically. So this is a scenario not where the solution automated the problem, but the solution automated the notification, the providing of information necessary to make a very informed decision that helps resolve the issue, and then automatically closing those tickets once the issue was resolved outside of the system. It's a really, really great use case for this agent-based event monitoring. Another use case we have, which kind of involves a couple tools I call compliance and device management, is the idea of low disk space. Now, this could apply to a Windows or a Linux or a Mac device, could apply to a desktop, a laptop, a server, doesn't really matter. Having low disk space on a device is always problematic. When a device runs low on disk space, the user experiences a dramatic slowdown. They could experience errors because certain files can't be loaded. They might get physical errors like the one that pops up on the screen here. You're running very low on disk space. Who knows how that manifests. But the idea here is that the help desk or service desk can identify thresholds. Say 90% of free disk space should be available at any given time. And the moment any device exceeds that available threshold, the device itself will create an incident in the help desk or service desk. Now, without any intervention by anybody, that will trigger an automation. The automation might be to delete the browser's cache, delete the cookies, delete the temporary directory, look in the user's folder for any MP4 files or music files greater than a certain size, and offloading them to their public share, and or deleting them and, of course, emptying the garbage can. The moment those actions that were automatically executed by FootPrints on the device resolve the issue and put that device in a happy state with respect to the low disk space warning occur, as again you can imagine, the ticket is automatically closed, and a history of all the actions that took place are automatically documented in that ticket. So in this proactive agent-based monitoring scenario, not only was the incident created, but it triggered an automation that helped to resolve the issue, at which point the ticket itself was automatically closed. Now, when you think about everything I've just talked to you about with respect to decreasing the amount of time you're on calls, automating fixes, providing buttons to trigger a action or set of actions on a device, this proactive stuff here, what you're doing is you're actually starting to document everything that's happening within your environment, but the majority of the extra stuff as well as the stuff you typically were documenting is either automatically addressed or the tools in the toolbox by integrating are provided to you to handle these issues in a very, very timely manner. This actually gives organizations a much better look at the amount of work they're doing, the amount of work or the amount of issues that they're avoiding based on the upfront work they're doing by integrating a powerful service management and desktop management suite, and really helps to show the value of an IT organization.